both keep returning to each other, not because you are weak, not because you are confused, and not because you simply cannot move on. There is one reason this keeps happening, one reason that psychology has studied, that poets have written about without fully understanding, and that you have felt in your chest at 2 in the morning when the world goes quiet and a name rises to the surface without permission. That reason is what this is about. There is something quietly extraordinary about the way you carry this, because you have tried, haven't you? You have filled your days with distraction. You have told yourself sensible things. You have had conversations with yourself that were perfectly logical, perfectly reasonable, and completely useless, because the feeling did not respond to logic. It never does. And that is not a flaw in you. That is not weakness. Psychology shows us that what you are experiencing has a name, has a structure, has a reason that runs deeper than habit or longing or even love as most people define it. This is what is happening beneath the surface. Your mind is not broken. Your heart is not irrational. You are simply two people whose nervous systems learned each other. And that kind of learning does not come undone just because time passes or distance grows. So what is the one reason? What is the single thread that explains why, no matter how many days separate you, no matter how much life has moved around you both, your mind still finds its way back to them, and theirs finds its way back to you? It is this. You became each other's emotional reference point. This is not a small thing. This is not simply you got used to each other or old habits are hard to break. What psychology tells us, particularly through attachment theory and the neuroscience of bonding, is that the human brain does not just remember people. It does not file them away like photographs in an album. When someone becomes deeply significant to you, your brain actually reorganizes itself around them. It creates new neural pathways that connect that person to your sense of safety, your sense of meaning, your sense of what is real and what matters. They become a reference point, a kind of internal compass. And compasses do not stop pointing north simply because you walk in a different direction. Think about what that means for you right now. It means that every time your mind goes quiet, every time the busyness falls away and you are alone with yourself, your brain instinctively reaches for that reference point, not because you are stuck, not because you are failing at healing, but because your nervous system was genuinely shaped by this person. You allowed them in deeply. You let them matter. And that kind of depth leaves a mark that is not erasure-proof. But here is the part that most people never hear, the part that explains why this goes both ways, why it is not just you, why they come back to your mind too, why this is not one-sided longing echoing in an empty room. When two people become emotional reference points for each other, the connection is not stored in one person alone. It is stored in both. Your nervous system carries them, yes, but their nervous system carries you too. Psychology describes this through the concept of co-regulation, the way human beings physically and emotionally soothe each other's nervous systems through prolonged closeness. When two people have truly co-regulated, when they have been each other's calm in the middle of chaos, each other's warmth in the middle of cold, that regulation does not simply expire, it remains encoded. And so when life gets loud for them, when the world feels uncertain, when they are sitting in their own quiet at 2 in the morning, their system reaches for the same reference point that shaped it, you. This is not fantasy. This is not wishful thinking dressed up in the language of science. This is what the research consistently shows, that human beings form lasting neurological bonds with the people who genuinely shaped their emotional world. And those bonds do not require daily contact to remain active. They remain active because they are part of the architecture of who that person has become. There is something almost sacred about that when you sit with it. Two people living separate lives, carrying the shape of each other in their nervous systems without even choosing to, not haunted, held, not stuck, woven. The universe does not accidentally create that kind of resonance between two people. Something about your specific histories, your specific wounds, your specific way of seeing the world, lined up in a way that allowed you to become genuinely necessary to each other's inner landscape. And so, the mind goes back. Back, not as a failure, not as a surrender, but as a system doing exactly what it was designed to do, seeking the frequency it was attuned to, seeking the reference point it built itself around, seeking you. None of this means you are meant to be in pain. None of this means you should chase or reach out or do anything at all. This is simply the truth of what is happening inside you and inside them. The returning does not need to be resolved. It does not need to be silenced. It needs to be understood. And understanding it, really understanding it, changes everything about how gently you are allowed to treat yourself in the middle of it. You deserve to be chosen, not tolerated, not kept as a backup plan or a comfort when everything else falls short. Chosen, fully, deliberately, with someone's whole heart facing yours. What you carry for this person is real, and it deserves to be met with something equally real. Do not let the returning convince you that being wanted only in someone's mind is enough for you. You are worth more than a thought that visits at midnight. You are worth a presence that stays. Your feelings are not too much. That depth you carry, that capacity to love someone so completely that your nervous system built itself around them, that is not a burden. It is not a flaw. It is one of the rarest and most beautiful things a human being can offer. The world will sometimes tell you to feel less, to care less, to protect yourself by shrinking. But your emotional depth is not the problem. It was never the problem. It is a gift, and the right people will receive it as one. Your silence is not cowardice. The fact that you have not forced this, have not demanded answers, have not made the feeling into a scene, that is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is you understanding on some deep level that not everything real needs to be performed, that some things are true without being spoken, that you can honor what you feel without surrendering your dignity to it. Holding this quietly is not the same as hiding. It is the same as knowing your own worth, well enough to wait for it to be recognized rather than begged for. You found this video for a reason, and if any part of this has spoken to something you have been carrying alone, you are not alone in it. Not anymore. If this reached you today, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Psychology Wisdom. This channel exists for people who feel deeply, who think quietly, and who deserve to understand what is really happening inside them. Every day there is something new here waiting for you, not to tell you what to do, but to remind you of who you already are. Welcome to this community. You belong here.